right, have and have not fans, you've been waiting for it. You finally got it. Yeah, I know I kind of pushed this off for almost 2 months, but hey, better late than never, right? Similar to the If Loving You Is Wrong review, we are going back through well, maybe not the entire series, but I think for the most part, I'll rewatch and review the episodes that I never officially reviewed on YouTube, but I indeed talked about it back in the day on both Twitter and my WordPress blog. So, if you're familiar with the way I review episodes, this is what you're going to get. Episode 1, the series premiere, back in August of 2013, if I'm not mistaken. The episode that really got everything started. Where I am in life now pretty much stemmed off this one episode. The haves and the have-nots, the big surprise. And if you're curious as to where you can watch every episode, number one, it's on Hulu. And trust and believe, look, you can find it on a lot of other secondhand websites, which I'm not going to say in the video, because if I do, I'm pretty sure somebody watching will block them. So, before I go any further, make sure you give the video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, of course, and the bell notification icon so you don't miss out when I post new content. And follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. Now, watching this episode, and I kind of went into a memory lane in my Love You Is Wrong review, but watching this episode was insane because not only did it put me back in the living room at home when I was watching this with my mom, but also the fact that this show, it's just crazy to see all the characters at the first episode and then see where they're at in the series now, whether they be dead or in completely different circumstances than they were when they first started. But and plus everybody looked a lot younger in the episode, not just because, well, Jeremy, this episode's from 2013 and it's 2020 now. I'm talking about like the characters themselves. You know, some have, bulked up, some have, lost weight, others, their hair and the way they look is different because, well, the stress of everything they go through. So Catherine's calling Jim about the fact that, look, it's your 50th birthday. We're going to have a surprise party. Your kids are coming in. 50 is a big deal. Governor Harvey and his wife sent their birthday wishes. And, he's like, okay, so what's that's going to cost us? A fundraiser dinner next month. And she asked him whether or not he's thinking about running for governor, but he doesn't answer. And she says, get your butt here by 6 p.m. And he's pretty much making up an excuse about a tough case that he's working on at the courthouse. And there's a knock on the door. It says, oh, it must be David. So they say goodbye. And Candy makes her entrance. Yep. The infamous Candy Kane. Oh, excuse me, as Warlock was saying. Candy Kane. She comes into the hotel room. They pretty much have a brief flirtatious encounter. And he leads her to the bed to do the nasty. After the theme song, we go to the Crier Estate and Hannah's having her job interview. Also, note, Savannah, Georgia. The Crier Estate, Savannah, Georgia appeared at the beginning of the episode. It tells the location. Hannah's having her job interview. Apparently, she worked for the Wildricks. Look, I couldn't really get the name. Maybe I should have watched with subtitles. The Wildricks. She worked for that family for 20 years, and her mother worked there as a maid before she did. Catherine's trying to dig and pry for any kind of information. Okay, so how did your former employer, how did she pass away? And, was her husband into more than just, women? Because did he really sleep with that young man? And Hannah's like, you know what? I don't think I'm the right person for this job. Have a good day. But Catherine's like, nope, you're hired because my family has secrets of their own. And then the day and age we live in with social media, yeah, we definitely don't need to have our dirty laundry out for everybody to see. And without further ado, it's like, hey, you can get started right now. Celine will get you settled in. And they pretty much go into the kitchen to talk for a little bit. They pretty much, update each other on what's going on with their lives. Celine's kids are doing good, staying out of trouble. And, of course, we know that's in reference to Carlos and little Jim. And then we have no word on her husband. She doesn't really want to talk about him. Benny's trying to get a tow truck. Everything's going well with him. And so how's his father? Hannah doesn't even bring that up. So it turns out Hannah was actually pretty good friends with her former employer because Celine's like, well, I'm happy she, died because, she was a little crazy, wasn't she? So, there was no telling what kind of rumors were being circulated within the community because, as Catherine said, it is a small town. So there's no telling what kind of rumors and, Water cooler talk was being discussed between, the haves, if you will, of that community. And as they're getting set up, okay, let's get you fitted for a uniform. We go over to Jim and Candy. They're having their pillow talk. And she gives him her personal phone number because he would like to see her again. And he left money on the nightstand for her. And that's pretty much the end of that scene. And it's like, dang, Jim's smiling now, but you ain't going to be smiling later on in the episode. And just thinking about their first sexcapade here compared to everything that happens later in the series, it's just crazy to think about. Catherine shows Hannah around the house, telling her, all the different things that she needs to do, what she expects from her as a maid. And an interesting line of dialogue that I don't believe we ever got a lot of follow-up or any kind of nod to in the future episodes is Catherine saying Wyatt is allergic to a lot of different things. And she asks Hannah if she has any children. It's like, two, a boy and a girl. And it's like, oh, okay, so do I. And that's pretty interesting because I know that Hannah told Catherine that she has a boy and girl, but Celine only knows about Benny. She doesn't know anything about Candace, which we'll find out more about as we get later into the episode. Veronica Harrington makes her astounding debut, and just looking at her outfit later on in season 1, Maggie Day, after she's introduced, she tells Veronica to wear clothing that's a little less loud. And so when you're seeing Veronica wearing like these in-your-face bright colors and frills and everything, it really is a shock to think that, wow, she really did used to dress like this. I know it's kind of a random thing, but I know Steve Harvey talked about, what's his current wife name? Not Menagerie, but whatever her name is. She pretty much talks about how, is it his current wife or a previous wife or whatever? Talks about how he used to walk around in like pimp suits and all, but she made it so he actually looked more presentable. So it's kind of interesting to look at the contrast of what Veronica wears now compared to what she wore back then. But she talks about the merger of her rehabilitation facility with another belonging to the Wilsons, who are out of business. And Chandler brought this up. We were chatting about episode 1 the other night, and he's like, Melissa, her last name, her family name is Wilson. And later on in the series, when we find out about Melissa and why she was doing what she was doing with Jeffrey, her father fell ill and could no longer run the family business, and they were on the verge of losing it, hence why Veronica saved them from a bankruptcy. So apparently the only reason this merger took place is, number one, Veronica saw an opportunity, the fact that her and David were friends with Melissa's parents, and as a result, the merger took place. And of course, we'll see the favor being handled later when pretty much Melissa's mother kind of gives up her daughter to serve as Jeffrey's, basically the bearer of Veronica's grandchild. But yeah, that was seeds being planted, no pun intended, that I honestly never saw coming. So we also get a nod to Veronica not drinking anything because she's like, oh, I think this is a reason to celebrate sparkling water and champagne for me, Catherine. Hannah's disgusted by Veronica's behavior. The way she has walked into the house, threw her coat and hat on Hannah. And Celine pretty much checks Hannah like, look, she's worth millions. She didn't marry into it. She's worth $20 million. She's a recovering alcoholic. She's been sober for about 20 years now. And her rehabilitation facility has been doing a lot of great work. Her husband's a judge, but Veronica's doing pretty well on her own. And as Veronica is talking with Catherine, she says that her and David will be at Jim's surprise birthday party. And Catherine is joking around about the fact that, just wondering if he's going to have a midlife crisis at any point. It wouldn't surprise her if a red sports car would pull up in the driveway later tonight. Not the continuity there, foreshadowing, because of course, remember that later in the episode, Candace is going to blackmail Jim for $100,000 and a sports car similar to Amanda's new car that Jim bought for her. And I don't know what color Amanda's is, but I know that Candace said that she wanted a red one. So ironically enough, Catherine did foreshadow the car. And then we go over to Jeffrey and Wyatt entering the house. He's angry about rehab. And of course, Jeffrey needs to be by his side for the first 60 days. And of course, he's like, I can't even go to the bathroom by myself. So he strips down and Veronica is on her way out. So Celine says to Hannah to use the back stairs. not to cross through the living room because Catherine doesn't like to see them pretty much, use the back stairway and everything. Of course, we know later why Celine is kind of treated with a cold shoulder by Catherine, but Hannah doesn't know any better yet. Now, Jeffrey is following Wyatt because Wyatt comes into the bedroom, because Celine and Hannah are prepping the kids' bedrooms and everything. Wyatt comes in naked, goes to the bathroom. Celine's like, I'm not talking to you about any clothes on. Jeffrey comes in, and I like how Hannah and Celine are just joking with each other about everything that's going on. Jeffrey says that to Catherine, pretty much reassuring Catherine, look, I know things look crazy with your son right now, but he's in the best possible hands. He's been clean for 47 days, but it's still going to take a bit of work. And in order for Wyatt to stay here the whole weekend, I'll have to stay with him as well. And instead of the guest bedroom, I'll be in the same room as him. Jim gets home, says hello to Jeffrey, says hey to Catherine, and chews out Wyatt for coming downstairs naked and to put some clothes on. Snaps at Jeffrey because I'm paying you a lot of money, your mother's facility, and my son isn't getting any better. And, Jeffrey's like, look, I can only be as effective, I can only be as good as my patient allows me. And Amanda arrives in the midst of the argument and introduces her family to Candace, and Jim is shocked when he sees her. And of course, this takes me back to when I first watched the episode because, when Amanda came in, I thought, okay, this is a pretty good show. As soon as I saw Amanda, I'm like, yep, I'm hooked. Yep, Jacqueline is the reason I got addicted to the show. And then the story took second priority after that. So Amanda showing Candace around her bedroom, and Candace compliments her on having a beautiful home, and it's like, oh, I'm sure your home is just as beautiful. Candace like, nope, it definitely isn't. She notices photos and of her horses and shows Candace a picture of her old horse Buster, who died about a year ago because he was old. And Candace looks a bit nervous and asks Amanda if she's sure her parents are okay with her spending time there for the weekend. And it is her father's private party, but Amanda reassures her, no, my family loves company, and it's a big event, so I'd love to have you here. Amanda's picking out a dress to wear for the evening, and Candace pretty much says none of the dresses really shows off your curves. And Amanda goes to try them on, and she says, I'll go in the bathroom, and Candace is like, well, why don't you just try them on right here? But she's like, no, I like to try them on in private. Of course, we learned that she's a cutter, so I'm guessing she didn't want to try the dresses on in front of Candace because she'll probably have scars and everything, and Candace will be like, whoa, what happened to you? We go to Jim's party. We pretty much flash forward to later that night. And you notice that David Harrington's voice is not the gravelly voice that he has later on in season 1, but it's more of a lighthearted tone. Like, Jim, you're having a good time. This party's amazing. Like the inflection. It's like Peter Parros is trying to find David Harrington's voice. He even said this in interviews where if you listen to David's voice in the first few episodes, it doesn't have that gravelly tone it does now. It's more light. It sounded a little bit deeper than his real voice, but it sounded much softer than the voice he just picks later on in the show. All right, so he gives a gift to Jim. It turns out it was a pretty expensive tie that I got in an auction for charity. It was worn by a former president. And Amanda calls out Jim for being not as social as he usually is, a bit too quiet because he loves being around people. And obviously, we know why he's silent, because Candace is standing a few feet away from him. It's like it's been a trying and tedious day. Hannah comes over to give everybody drinks and is a bit stunned to see Candace standing there, and she goes to the kitchen. Amanda is struggling to get through law school, but Candace is like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to help you study. I'll help you figure out how to pass. Veronica is pretty impressed by, a young, smart, independent young woman like herself in law school. Candace is black, just like Veronica. And, Candace says that her father works at the Windthrift Cancer Institute. And Veronica knows somebody who works on the board there, but Candace refuses to tell who her father's name is. Wyatt is pretty much being antagonizing and, trying to pick a fight, pretty much saying smart-ass comments the entire time. And he pretty much snaps at, his parents as well for having him locked up. And, even Veronica, Catherine, everybody jumps like, look, you're an addict and we had to be in rehab. So Candace says that her mother is dead, and Hannah ends up spilling a drink on her. Catherine snaps at her to get in the kitchen and says, "Hey, you stay in the kitchen. Celine, go out and serve." So we actually have Candace Candace being confronted by Hannah upstairs, and my gosh, man, the dialogue here is setting up so much that we'll find out later in the series. Hannah asking where her grandchild is, her grandson, pretty much saying that low life boy Quincy. Does he have you running another con right now? And it's like, look, you're just like your father. Well, of course, we know who the father is now. Derek, even though technically speaking, I remember still being somewhat suspicious about Derek being the real father, because it could have been another guy with the lion tattoo, and Derek could have assaulted another woman who wasn't Hannah. But for simplicity's sake, let's just say Derek is the father, okay? That we'll cross that bridge when the show comes back later this year in a couple of months. But in any case, it's like the build up in this episode, because there were several moments where Hannah brings up Candace's father, the fact that, oh, she's her father's daughter and she's just like him and everything. But technically, you know, Hannah doesn't know much about Candace's father. So, in any case, you know, Candace is belittling Hannah because she doesn't believe she's in college or law school. Amanda's my friend. I'm not running any kind of con. I'm going to get cleaned up because there are people downstairs waiting for me. You go back to your little life of servitude. Now, we go back to Hannah actually issuing a warning that, little girl, something bad's going to happen to you. And of course, we know things happen. Oh, they happen all right. But Hannah's telling Celine that Candace is her daughter, and Celine's like, look, the reason I have had this job for so long is because I kept my mouth shut. Hannah, I know you're upset. Don't tell the criers anything, because if you do, they'll probably think that you had something to do with this, because Hannah was going to spill the beans right then and there. And that actually brings about an interesting question. What if Hannah actually just told the truth in episode 1? Like, pretty much, hey, my daughter hanging around your daughter is bad news. She's bad news. Something bad's going to happen. Would Hannah have lost her job? Maybe, because at this point, her and Catherine didn't know each other this well. But that well. But at the same time, Hannah would have saved that family from a lot of grief and drama. Trust and believe that. Let's see. So, oh yeah, also Celine mentions how Hannah never even mentioned the fact she had a daughter, or, you know, that her name was Candace. So her and Hannah have known each other for about 4 years now. So, like I said earlier in the review, you have Hannah telling Catherine that she has 2 kids, a daughter and a son. So when it comes to Celine and Hannah, did Hannah only tell Celine that, hey, I have a son named Benny, but never mention a daughter at all? That's what it seems like to me. So Celine tells Hannah that Catherine wants you to go home and you can just try again tomorrow. And, you know, Hannah goes home, and Benny's there, and my gosh. I mean, I cannot remember the last time we saw Benny as a likable character. I mean, it's hard to fathom that. I remember, like, after the hit and run by Wyatt, it was a situation where, you know, his personality changed because he was in a coma for most of the back half of season 1, and then when he got off the life support, he was a bit different. But it was kind of a slow process of seeing the new Benny. But yeah, definitely a mama's boy. You know, clearly the kinder of the young family children. But he's got dinner made for his mom. You know, she's excited because she saw that he finally got the tow truck outside, and it's like, look, you know, Deuce said I got 24 hours to return it. I know money's tight, so if I need to return it, then I'll do it. But she's like, no, you're going to go ahead, work hard, and you'll have a fleet of trucks soon. And he asks about how was your first day at work with the new family, and she pretty much says it was something else, and, you know, and then your sister popped up, and we pretty much get the first signs of Hannah being not so certain about Candace, given the fact of her past. Pretty much says, like, you know, hey, don't worry, she's in law school. We talk about it sometimes, and, you know, I just didn't tell you because we knew you would probably not believe her or be concerned. And Hannah's like, it's not that her being in school is a bad thing. It's just, you know, how is she paying for it? I mean, this is pretty much the early signs of Hannah showing that it isn't about what you're doing in life that matters. It's like how you're doing. Well, maybe it's not. It's not about what you have in life. What's important is what you did in order to get it, because that definitely is an indicator as to whether or not did you get it through ill or good gotten gains. And as a result, that will determine whether or not you'll keep it and get more, or if it'll be stripped away from you as quickly as you received it. So basically, if Candace is going straight, like a legit job, legit career, legit direction in life, then everything's going to be fine. But yeah, she's in law school, but how is she paying for it? Which begs a good question. Do we ever find out how exactly she's paying for law school? I mean, is this like an accumulation of all of her past cons? Oh, actually, no, I'm stupid. She literally says, and she's on a website, we'll find out later in a few episodes, that yeah, she literally is prostituting her way through law school. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I watched these episodes. But it turns out, she has a nanny because, Benny's like, oh, don't worry. Her son's fine. She has a nanny, and Hannah's like, Candace left here about 18 months ago broke, and now you're telling me she's got a nanny. She's her father's daughter, all right. How can two children raised in the same home be so different? It's like, different daddies. Which is interesting because Candace doesn't know her father, and technically speaking, Hannah doesn't know who. She knows of the individual, but she really doesn't know anything about the guy who with the lion tattoo. And Benny doesn't even know Tony, so weird. All right, so again, and I'm not going to dock points for this because it's like, wow, Jeremy, it's like you're saying a lot of things in episode 1 that really didn't pan out. It was episode 1, season 1. Tyler Perry didn't know where the show was going fully at that time, so I'm not really going to condemn him for it. But maybe when I get to an episode where it's like, you know what, this episode contradicts, maybe I'll talk about that then. But we go over to Veronica. Everybody's leaving. Jim's party's winding down. And she's telling Catherine to keep an eye on Candace because I don't really trust that girl. I mean, the fact that she wasn't willing to say anything about her father. And Jim and Catherine are getting ready for, to go to bed. Amanda's like, look, I haven't seen you in forever. Why don't you stay and talk? And it's like, oh, no, it's just been a long day. So they give each other a hug, and he passes by Candace. Catherine does the same to Amanda. And as they're passing each other, Candace says goodnight, and so does Catherine. But Catherine kind of gives a little bit of a look of suspicion as Candace goes down the stairway to go back to the party. And let's see. Jim and Catherine are in their room getting ready for the night. Jim thanks her for the party, and Catherine's like, okay, something's off with you. What's her name? And pretty much suspects an affair. But Jim's like, oh, her name Amanda, our daughter. She cuts herself. How about Wyatt? He's in rehab. Amanda needs therapy but doesn't want it. Our son's in therapy and he doesn't, and it's not even working. So I don't know exactly what it is you think I should be thankful for, but I'm going to go to sleep. Wyatt's sneaking around drinking alcohol while Jeffrey and Amanda are, at the dining table eating some food. And Candace gets a phone call from Benny and goes into the next room to take it. Benny's pretty much telling Candace about how Hannah's upset that you're at that family's house where she's working, and she's like, why does she just get another job? It's like, hey, she needs this job. And Candace once again reassures Benny, hey, I'm going straight. I'm friends with Amanda. She just invited me over for the weekend. Nothing foul's going on over here. And he's like, hey, so you've been paying this month's mortgage of the house? And Candace's like, no, I got it. And before they hang up, he tells her that, hey, I got the tow truck, and she's happy for him. And then, that's the end of that. But later on, while in bed, Jim snatches up Candace and takes him down to his study. Wyatt is downstairs drinking because, as he points out, like 2 seasons from now when he lashes out at Catherine, look, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and there's alcohol in every nook and cranny of this house. So basically, Wyatt is sneaking around, just drinking up everything in sight, and he notices Jim and Candace going into his study. Jim pretty much confronts Candace about the whole situation, telling you need to get up in the morning, make up an excuse, and get the hell out of my house. And Candace tries to put on that, like, no, Jim, don't worry. Me and Amanda are friends. I'd never do anything to hurt you. And it's like, fine, you want to play that way? $100,000 in a red sports car like the one you bought your daughter, or I'm going to burn this little playhouse of yours down to the ground. Foreshadowing, even though Candace isn't the one who actually burns the house down, it's Catherine, but That's the end of the episode. As Candace comes out of the study, Jim follows out frustrated. Wyatt looks and then takes a sip. And I'll never forget the way my mom was laughing when she noticed it's Wyatt just in the corner drinking. What an episode, guys. What an episode. It was definitely a treat to go back because you just see so many things that we haven't seen in a while. Hannah happy. Yeah, she was spooked when she saw Candace, but, you know, seeing Celine and Hannah on good terms, just joking, having fun. I mean, when you really think about it, how many friends does Hannah have? I mean, aside from Catherine, and of course we know that relationship or that friendship has had a lot of ups and downs, but, you know, based off what we know, Celine was the only friend that Hannah had, at least for a good 4 years. I mean, we know that Hannah goes to church, but we never really seen her in church aside from the Little Lizzie funeral. So I'm not saying that she doesn't have friends in that church community, but I mean, they know that Hannah's respected in the hood, but it seems like, you know, co-worker slash friend Celine was the best one she had, of course, until later on in this season, that is. Just seeing Amanda and Wyatt and Jeffrey, and just seeing how when it came to this show in the early seasons, like, you really had to pay attention to everything being said because there's a lot of foreshadowing and Easter eggs and wordplay going on, building up for future events. So this episode was great. I mean, this was the one that started it all for me. So I'm going to give this episode, because I gave the If Loving You Is Wrong episode an 8.5 out of 10. Now, let me just quickly go over my notes again to make sure I'm not being biased. And while I'm glancing over my notes, if you would like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal, Cash App, or join Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Yeah, I mean, I feel like what this episode did, it just gave me a reminder of what it was like to have the characters all playing a role. Like, obviously, as season 1 goes on, we'll see that some characters play bigger roles than others, but it didn't feel like we were wasting any time in an episode. It's like every character served a purpose. Nobody was there just for show. We got the seeds planted for, you know, Jim running for governor, you know, Veronica's facility, Wyatt in his rehab program. Again, I don't want to seem biased, but I'm giving this episode a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. This was like one of the best series premieres that Tyler Perry has ever dropped. I mean, when you compare this episode to the first episode of The Oval, or you know, Sisters, or Ruthless, or Bruh, this one definitely stands out. I mean, obviously, it's been God knows how long since I saw the first episode of House of Pain or Meet the Browns, and I think this episode definitely worked better than If Loving You Was Wrong episode 1, because I talked about some things that I felt were a bit off about that in terms of things not being believable, such as like Kelly and Marcy being a bit overly oblivious slash naive. In the haves and the have-nots, I feel like, you know, even, I mean, people were calling out Jim for kind of being out of character, kind of like and If Loving You Is Wrong, people were calling out Alex for being pregnant or having a period because, you know, it looks like you're put on a little bit of weight, you have weird cravings, whereas Jim is like, Jim, you're not being your usual social self. But in episode 1, even Veronica's like, I don't trust that Candace girl, Catherine, you need to watch out. So yeah, it was good. We really had a good establishment of the character. So yeah, perfect opening. So with that being said, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Do you like this style of review, me going back to the beginning to review these episodes? Because like I said, I will most likely just review the episodes up until the point of when I actually started doing this on YouTube. So sometime in like season 3. I did this one and If Loving You Is Wrong. I know for the haves and the have-nots, it returns September, so I think I'll probably put the recap on hold once the show officially comes back, because remember, at that point, Ruthless, Bruh, we're going to have like a bunch of shows come back during the fall, and not to mention other shows that will debut, so keep that in mind. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.